wherever you are listening to in the world. Welcome back to another episode on Solving the People Puzzle, where I, your host, Francois de Wet, have fantastic guests joining me on a weekly basis. Esli, welcome. Almost wanted to say congratulations, but that would be welcome. In person in Wamley office in our recording studio. It's awesome to have you here.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Fantastic. End of the year. How's your people feeling? How's everybody
Tired
going?
for sure. I've been selling a lot of IV drips, even though I don't get any commission, but I definitely highly recommend it to any person this
Does
time
it work?
of year. Absolutely. I feel like you've slept
Oh,
for
really?
the first time in weeks. Yeah.
Okay, well, there's your first golden nugget audience.
IV drips.
IV drips. What do you ask for? Like B12 or just?
It has B12, vitamin C, all your minerals, everything. And it's like comes in 200 mils, so it's like 10 minutes in and out.
It's always so interesting for me at the end of the year where, like, especially end of October, people start saying, like, you hear around you, everybody's saying how tired they are.
Yeah.
And I always wonder, to what extent are we really tired, or is it because of this, we hearing this message the whole time, and there's like this conditioning around, oh, it's November, I must be tired.
Could be. For sure. I think also like our pattern basically of business is we know that most businesses close in December, so it's almost like that 1 kilometer before the finish line. It's always the most difficult, you know?
Yeah, keep your eye. Solving the People Puzzle, a podcast that we do where we give back to the HR community. As I mentioned to you, the listeners are tuning in to gain insights, aha moments, practical tips, techniques. And so today we're going to do exactly that. So before we jump in, I would love for you to just share with the audience who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm, Dr. Esli Kekana.
Yes, congratulations. PhD in the bag. Boom.
Done. Check. I'm an OD and talent manager at Barron. I've been there for almost 8 years now, and I've been very involved from the beginning with strategic HR implementation. I've had to help build HR infrastructure basically from scratch. And then as soon as I was done with that, I told them, okay, let me now move more across the business. And over the years, I've been able to help the business move from being non-compliant with BEE to level 1.
Wow. In
like a matter of 4 years. And that's really by leveraging different programs to our advantage.
That's incredible. I remember meeting you pre-Wamley when I was still heavily involved in assessments. And yeah, it's been interesting also to see you grow, and it's been awesome to be on this journey with you. Like 8 years we've been doing this together, putting things in place, building things, coming up with innovative solutions. I'd love to double down today into from the basics and setup into the more org effectiveness stuff that I guess you're doing now, and the OD stuff. So if you can maybe just as a kind of an intro share, highlight the 8 years, like how did you go? Because, and the reason I'm asking is I can imagine an audience member just joined an organization, tasked with setting up HR. It's tough, and there's, where do you start?
Yeah, it's really tough. I think my normal profile is I'm just a pioneer. So I'm I guess I'm built for it. I don't like existing things. So I like creating a lot, but with it comes a lot of resistance. Nobody initially buys into anything. Yeah. And you have to bark up a variety of trees in order to get it over the line. So how I started with this, aside from the HR stuff that I implemented, when I started as an OD and talent manager, when COVID hit, so just before COVID hit, our business obviously, or with COVID in line, obviously it affected a lot of businesses. But then I saw, while I was heavily pregnant, at home, working from home, my husband is an entrepreneur, so he was out there selling masks to whoever wanted it, right? And then I sort of got insight into the challenges of small entities, where they don't have working capital. What makes working capital slightly different from normal capital is it's the running around money, having fuel, having airtime, the basic things. So running around capital,
the stuff you need to actually
to generate
have a business,
to have conversations, to take someone for coffee, that sort of thing. And then the other main thing was, for example, my husband got this deal, R1 million deal from government for masks. Okay. And for the life of him, he just couldn't get a supplier to help him do that, right? He had the valid purchase order, but nobody was willing to back it. And then I thought, that's actually such a gap, because you have a valid purchase order. Can't we come up with something that just helps them get that release of the product. So it's not even giving people financial, like cash or whatever. You're literally giving them what you have.
Yes.
You're just getting paid for it later. So I just remember I was there in my yard talking to almost every exco member we had back then, trying to explain to them, like, this is a missed opportunity and this is something we can do that differentiates us from our competitors, because we could also make it ourselves. And it just fell on deaf ears, right? And I'm like, oh gosh, okay, let me rework it. So then I rework it, and I eventually go to the sales director back then, and he also just, nobody seemed to have seen what I've seen. Then we got a new CEO eventually, later on, I think 2021, yes. And I said, okay, let me present this to you. And I even started with him, and I said, you know what, if you don't buy into this, then I'm going to stop, because then I've tried 3 or 4 senior people. And if you don't buy into it, then my dream is basically just an idealistic thing.
So if I can now stop you just there.
Yes.
If we can backtrack a second, what does your business do?
Okay, so our business is one of the leaders in corporate apparel,
Yes.
gifting and promotional items, and any display products like gazebos, heart banners, that sort of thing. So anything that you basically put your brand on.
Correct.
To get out there, right?
Yes.
So we can do anything.
So the reason I asked that is the conversation shouldn't have been that difficult given the line of work that
We're
the business
into
is in.
activating brands, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so then eventually when I presented to the CEO, he was like, why haven't we started doing this? And I'm like,
Your point exactly.
I honestly don't know, because my recommendation wasn't anything it was going to cost us money. I did like a proper gap analysis on our BEE system to show him, like, the cheapest points you can get is enterprise and supply development. I think there's like 20 points available. It's based on your net profit after tax, which was very little for us back then because we were going through a tough time. I think it was maybe like 100,000 Rand, 150 collectively. And I said to him, you know, our time that we spend as employees counts. Our redundant stock that we give them counts. Whatever we do counts, right?
Yes.
So I came up with the plan. We were able to enroll 2 entities or 3 entities. One of them was one of our previous employees that opted out for voluntary retrenchment. So I'm like, I always keep track of people even if they leave us, because I'm like, you never know
100%.
when you're gonna
External pipeline.
Absolutely. So then that's how we started, very small. But this was sort of the idea that I had also in terms of what's the most impactful way you can create employment. And it isn't with big corporates, because that is where the most volatility also exists. You add 100 people, next month the strategy changes, you lose 100 people. And that's like, 100 people is quite a lot, right?
Yeah.
So I also thought SMMEs is probably the most impactful way, because if you add 10 people, 1 to each SMME, versus 10 people to 1 big corporate, it almost creates more jobs, more secure jobs, you know, in the long run. And that's why I also wanted to target supplier and enterprise development. One of my big strategies was because of COVID, we had a lot of reputational damage, because a lot of our stock obviously comes from overseas, everything was blocked or whatever. And then I said to the CEO, why don't we just create our own customers? Like, we can find people that haven't been in the reseller industry, but they're entrepreneurial.
Yes.
Then we give them the benefits of our
Create
program.
that channel.
And we create our own customer base, you know?
So I want to, because as you're speaking, I'm thinking about, surely this is helping reduce unemployment.
I'm hoping so. A very small scale at the moment.
And it sounds like there's this leverage opportunity. So can we double click on that so that the audience can follow? All right, OD, talent manager, put systems in place, likes innovation, change, making things better, spotting opportunities. This opportunity came along. The CEO, I guess, then said, well, let's do this.
Yes.
How did it work?
So basically because now I'm using the framework of BEE specifically on how to get the most points. But you get bonus points for if you promoted someone from your enterprise program to a supplier.
Okay.
And you get bonus points if they, appointed somebody permanently in that year. So our program is essentially an enterprise development program who identify people that can be our resellers. So we create our own customers, and then we also try and direct some of our current non-compliant spend to potentially compliant suppliers by then also putting them on the enterprise program and then later on promoting them.
So clever.
Yeah, so it's like, it feels like a game. I think that's why I like it so much, because it's like you really have to maneuver,
figure it out,
get the most
strategy,
points
that strategy.
possible.
Tell me, I'm creating a client out of you. Would they then be current employees in the program that you then move out?
So that is the next step that I'm looking at, yes,
okay.
for sure, because we do have a lot of entrepreneurial employees, and what I've even learned from my PhD research is a lot of people, you know, they work, but they have to have a side hustle. I mean, like, it almost doesn't even matter what you earn. You have to have some form of side hustle. To have all your eggs in one basket, like solely reliant on an employer, is also not viable as we're going into becoming our own entities one day, right? We are our own commodity, we're trading ourselves, which sounds terrible.
We are.
Yes.
Personal brand is a big thing.
Right, so then the one way that I'm thinking we can possibly do it is that you try and support and set somebody's business up for them, but then they come from our employment. But that's definitely a future pipeline. At the moment, it is literally just linking up with people that have that hunger, that entrepreneurial hunger, that are very persistent, you know, and then giving them the opportunity so that they can at least compete.
Yes.
I think that was the main frustration when I started talking to the small businesses, is even if we give them some benefits, they're not able to compete with other competitors out there because of pricing, because they don't know the products very well. So we really try and support them so that they are actually competitive at the end of the day.
Okay. And tell me, I can imagine the audience going, okay, where do you find these people?
Yeah, that's... Like, it literally, you have to rely on your network at the small scale that it is, right? So we currently rely a lot on like people that know people, and then we let them fill in an application and take it there. Until like one day it's like we are like looking at having a Empowered by Barron site with all the suppliers that we're using, because that's also a need that I'm seeing, is there's no black business directory where it's like one-stop shop and you can see and you can learn about the companies and you can see how you can use them. So that's also what we're introducing, but literally word of mouth. I now have somebody in my team that does the calls, so that she actually goes and finds these businesses, try and set up meetings with them, and then we see how we can support them. Mostly the support is what we have. So it's like, we have a bunch of professionals in our business. We take for granted that we can actually help people solve problems, that little bit of advice.
The internal knowledge.
Absolutely. So, for example, we have a lot of CAs in our business. And when you package it to them to say your whatever advice you're going to give, you're literally helping the small business do whatever, right? Amazing. So with the CAs, for example, they help them structure their financial statements in a way that makes sense, because a lot of times with small companies, they just allocate cost wherever, so it actually tells a different story.
A lot of small companies don't even have proper books.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're sitting with that, and that is unfortunately all the things that make them look not credible.
Yes.
So I think one of the main things that we do is we try, like with the products that we sell, we literally try and activate small companies by helping them look credible.
Okay.
And giving them the support so that they can be credible.
Yes.
Right? So we soundboard with them, we provide them with products and whatever to get their name out there. I've now even started to link some of my entities up with each other, right? So it's like
creating that network.
Yes, this one needs somebody to deliver stuff. Oh, I have I have a career company on our books, you know. So it's like synergies you're creating.
I want us to quickly put back our HR hats and potentially even some of the psychological hats that you and I both wear. What, from a mindset perspective, needs to be in place, especially from senior leadership, to listen to this presentation of yours and go, okay, let's give this a go? Because the audience might go, yeah, well, this is something we didn't think about. We love the idea. I love the idea. I want to go and pitch it. So maybe we can answer it both ways. To the individual listening, wanting to approach their CEO, the approach to do that. But then also, if you're a business owner or you're an HR exec listening, what is that mindset required from the environment to foster a program like this?
Bottom line, that's literally, sounds terrible, but it's literally the way you need to present it, is to show what is the benefit to the business.
Yes.
Like, I am a diehard when it comes to these things, but I'm not impractical. Like, there has to be a mutual benefit instead of just forking out money. So a lot of entities that I've seen, and I think that's really what sets us apart.
It's not philanthropy.
Right? It's not a bunch of charities that you're supporting. There has to be either your brand needs to grow or whatever. There has to be some mutual benefit. And you have to show that. So I think with the CEO, I knew that he's a numbers person, because he's also a CA by trade. So I showed him the numbers, and I'm like, skills development, I've calculated it based on our numbers. It costs about 700,000 Rand for a point.
Sure.
So that's not where we're going to get the most points from. You know, I've gotten as much points as I possibly can with the limited budget that I have. But here's the opportunity. 20 points, it won't even cost us anything because we just use what we have. And then it's sort of, now I just have to report on it.
Sure. That's amazing. I think, I often, because we started the conversation with behavioral change, and change is difficult, especially in HR when there's nothing and you need to create systems and structures and processes. From a buy-in, often HR goes to sentiment or convenience or a nice to have. And a lot of the things in place, I mean, we often sit in conversations around, is WAMLI a must have, is it a nice to have? And the ROI, actually saving time and money.
Yeah.
That's really where I see, and then of course, digitalisation as a strategic initiative in the business, because I mean, it's potentially a difficult conversation with certain individuals around this, but what it sounds like is you're doing it how it was intended, reducing unemployment, creating opportunity for people to flourish, creating a network for people to connect and grow together. Yes, there's a benefit back to Barron. In level 1. Yes. I mean, so that mutual beneficial, and then doing it in the right way, going with the bottom line mindset, understanding that the stakeholder that you're going to talk with is a numbers person. So let's not come with the emotional side of it, might not be seen through.
I think also, like, the thing is, I knew that the value that it has to our reputation in the long run is something you cannot put a rand number to. But it wasn't the angle that I used, but I knew long term.
Correct.
Like, who wouldn't, for example, with our YES program as well. So our YES program is the Youth Unemployment Initiative, where you employ people for a period of 12 months, give them practical work exposure, give them some development or whatever. They get a credible CV once they're done with you. Most of the time we absorb them, so 50% of the people we've absorbed. But otherwise we try and get them permanent jobs when they're finished with us. But even when we started that, it was a numbers conversation. We have the opportunity to employ a bunch of people on minimum wage for 12 months, right? It sounds terrible, but which company wouldn't jump to that opportunity,
100%.
Especially if you're saying these people studied something, right?
Yes.
So even my conversation at the start of the program is to say, guys, you're going to earn peanuts for this 12 months, but I can guarantee you if you're done and we absorb you, then we adjust it. But for the 12 months, you have a lot of people that also have to invest their own time and into developing you. So it's like a labor of love for everyone. So it started off with rands and cents conversation just to get the program in. Now, years later, I mean, we started this in 2019. It's almost something that the company can't go without. Even though we get the BE benefit of jumping a level, it's like ingrained in our fiber now. So we won't ever be able to reduce it. And now I can start having the conversation to say, okay, actually, we should be paying this for the 12 months. And now there's a little bit more leverage, but you have to, it's like supply and demand. So even with the enterprise and supply development program, for me to have gotten my foot in the door with it, it had to be a free thing, right? That I scrambled around, try and solve
Little
it,
risk.
right? Low risk, big return, whatever. But now that it's making traction, now I can ask for things like, oh, maybe we give them X amount with Barron that they have to spend with us. Because now that's part of maybe a package that we give a new reseller to the industries. All the other benefits, but here's money to spend with us. So we're also benefiting from it because now you'll always use our product. So my advice, I guess, is initially it won't be what you want it to be. But it eventually develops into it if you make sure that the benefit is realized. And that's the most important thing. And that's why I know this isn't something that somebody can just copy and paste from Barron, because it has a lot of passionate people that work together to make this thing work. And it's been a labor of love for all of us. And we're starting to reap the rewards, because now there are some of our big customers that are like, actually, you know what, we're actually spending with Barron because you guys are interested in getting South Africa back on its feet.
So 3 things: love, passion, interest.
Yes.
And for me, it circles back to understanding your why. Like, why are we doing this? And I think, holistically, that was the intention of the program and BE. And it's the why behind it. And it's awesome to have a use case or a real case study around an organization and nailed it. Congratulations, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Upon the 50% that actually get retained, right? I'm curious, their age kind of brackets that you bring them in, because I want to circle into the misconception and at times maybe a reality around the youth being, what's the right word I'm looking for? They entitled.
Yeah.
And they don't want to work hard. What are you seeing in that space in terms of that bracket?
So it is a hit and a miss sometimes, like
Yeah.
I think with any recruitment. But what I've seen from the youth, because like we get 3,000 applications to
Sure.
join our program. So
Sure.
thank God for Whamley, because we do the interview phase on Whamley, right?
Yes.
It reduces it from 30 minutes to 5 minutes, and nobody has to pay for transport to get to you. It's maybe like 100 megs of data that they need, right? So it's
Amazing.
a lot easier to find people, and we've had a lot of people coming from the regions, because we're able to interview them through the platform. But so we get 3,000 applications that we have to work through. So sometimes it's a hit and a miss, but like we are able, I don't know, like we have the winning recipe now. We try and make sure that they are, like, it's almost like, I call it recycling positions.
Yes.
So in our structures, we have entry-level jobs that we know we need, but
In the warehouse,
yeah,
pickers, packers.
warehouse clerks, right?
Yes.
Assistant buyers, whatever, literally like a B-band position. I call them recycling because I know I'm always going to have a yes person in there. I won't really need a permanent person
Yeah.
because it's a semi-skilled job. And then we have opportunities for people where it's like we're trying to play around with an idea in the business to see, okay, should we introduce this thing or not? And we bring someone in through the YES program, and if it pans out, it's great. Then it gives us a justification to absorb the person. But I've had some of the most successful stories through the YES program. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because it's almost, I see it as like a mining expedition. You literally have to
Find
put in
the
the
diamonds.
work, right? It's not easy. You really have to work through a lot of things. But when you find it, it's like one of the most valuable employees you can get. Because, and then the nice thing about it is you're the one giving them the opportunity.
Wow.
If it wasn't for your stepping stone at Barron, they probably would have still been somewhere trying to find work. The entitlement one, I would say probably 10% of our intakes are a bit entitled, but we take like a very hands-on coaching sort of thing. It's part of my internship program, is they actually have to provide career guidance to these yes employees for the year. Speak to the supervisors, speak to their colleagues, gain information, and give them that through like valuable feedback. We also give them opportunities to present and present any topic, whatever, give them like feedback on those skills that they're applying. And then we like sort of set the ground rules at the beginning to explain earning peanuts, this is the things that will set you apart, whatever. And then usually the people that are entitled, like they don't last that long. They are usually the ones that drop out, but the ones that remain, I mean, one of our success stories was a guy that I think, because they're all below 29 in our program. It has to be youth.
Age.
29 years old or younger. And he studied finance, he has a degree in finance. And he struggled for like 3 to 4 years just trying to get a foot in the door. We gave him a foot in the door, and he's actually had 2 promotions since he started with us.
What a story.
And I'm like, we would have never otherwise even considered this guy. And I think that's the beauty for me. It's like, it's people that you would overlook.
Yeah.
And now you're like, oh, I'm going to take a chance. And more often than not, we're reaping the benefits.
Yes.
And you're getting somebody that will be brand loyal.
I was just about to say, the loyalty factor there.
Yeah. And or employee engagement overall. Because when I did our focus groups after our ESI survey, we do a stop, start, and continue thing, right? And the people all over the business, even though they didn't benefit from it, would say we need to continue with the YES program and youth employment, because that's sort of what makes them feel engaged with the organization, is that we do care about youth employment.
We care. That's fantastic. Let's land the plane. Someone who just listened to this, they're super excited, they want to do something about this. Where do they start?
So I think the easiest one for HR is skills development.
Yes.
Right? So skills development, if you look at your tiny budget, which you normally get, right? To get the most out of the budget, I would say look at different learnerships, because return on investment is great in terms of what is recognized. So start there, because it's not just the program that gets recognized, it's the person's salary for the duration of the learnership.
Okay.
So that's an easy, low-hanging fruit win. Then I would definitely say go to Yes for Youth if you want to introduce the Yes program.
Yes for Youth.
Yes,
is that
for
where
youth.
they find it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes for Youth.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yes. And then you can see how you can get started and how your company can benefit from it. And then I would say with the supplier and enterprise development, it's almost like you have to understand what is it that your company can give that they already have, and how can that help unlock other entities.
Yes.
And then you just do a pilot. Like my first 1 or 2 didn't go too well, but our program is 3 years, so kind of have to rectify whatever went wrong, and we also learn through it.
Absolutely.
But it's like a mutually beneficial thing at the end of the day. So I would say if you're selling products, maybe you can give people the products. If you're selling solar panels, maybe you equip their business with solar panels. Like there's always an opportunity to use what you have to enable other businesses.
And I think we often overlook that. Like, what do you have? Let's start there.
Absolutely.
And I think knowledge around this topic is also something that's really important. I'm not too sure we always understand exactly the opportunities there are. I mean, just a silly reference, the points 1 to 20, the option to get 20, like, and then the mutual how to benefit both parties from that.
Yeah, it needs to be synergy, because
100%.
like my idealistic mind is like, because I love, I'm very altruistic in that sense, but I'm also like very commercial minded. So I like the combination of both, where it's like we're not just helping people in need, we're literally teaching people how to fish. That's like the one thing I'm always interested in is
100.
I don't want to give people fish. I actually get annoyed with that, right?
Yeah.
But I want to empower people. So that's even a principle I have at home, because for me it's like and like with the skills development portion, I'm very focused on how do I help people break the cycle of general work through skills development. Because if you're able to do that, then you're also unlocking somebody's earning potential years to come just by helping them cross that, you know.
And their generation's earning potential.
Absolutely, because you're setting everybody up on a better foot.
Breaking that bad cycle.
Yeah, so it's those are all like finding ways to break the general worker cycle is definitely a key thing for any person in charge of skills development to look at. Like through higher education, recognition of prior learning, learnerships, all of those things are just things that unlock people. Like it's almost like that's the processing thing of where you align somebody to an opportunity and they are...
And set them up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like we even have another success story where like the guy has worked in our hardware department for years, great potential, whatever, and we were able to now send him to ArcelorMittal for a year and a half to get a millwright apprenticeship, to do his millwright apprenticeship. So he's coming back into a skilled position.
That is so cool.
And you're like quadrupling the person's earning potential.
I love that. Both yourself and they are a client of ours, so this is full circle for me listening to this. Esli, thank you so much. Wow, this is so insightful and refreshing to hear a different perspective on leveraging programs to reduce unemployment, understanding your why, your purpose. So well done, keep up the good fight, and thank you for connecting, coming through and being on the pod.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic.